Welcome back, Lion Golf Academy members and guests. And no, it's not the red light. Thank you for those that do join me, however, on the Red Light Live series on Sundays at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. If you want to appear in the videos, this is where we diagnose your golf swing, teach you about your cause and effect, go over some things you can work on. I know golf lessons can be kind of expensive, and this is a way for me to give back to you. So send me your videos if you want to appear in it. But we go live every Sunday with the Red Light Live series. But today we're going to talk about Savannah Vilaubi. But before we get that, I got some good news for us. We are going to be sitting down live and having an interview with Phyllis Meddy. And for those that don't know who Phyllis Meddy is, look her up on YouTube. She hit the longest drive on record, 407 yards for a lady. We're going to sit down and talk to her. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to get to that in a couple of weeks. Don't know where. It could just pop out at random. And we might go live. We might do record it. Depends on her schedule, because I believe she is still in New Zealand. And you got to check out my new ball marker. This just came in. Can you tell me where that's from? Leave me a comment down below if you are a child of the 80s or were around in the 80s. Let these young guns know what this was about, because it was one of the best. But let's get to Savannah Vilaubi, and forgive me if that's not how you say her name, but you know me, I butcher names left and right. It wouldn't be a video unless I butcher some names and make up some words. But today we're going to look at her swing, look at her cause and effect. Before we get that, we're just going to go over quick statistics for the LPGA Tour in 2022. Driving accuracy suffers a bit, 65%. You want to see that in the 70-75%. Greens and regulation, 60%, so it's a little bit low. You would like to see 75-66 for the best in the world. It always comes down to more fairways, more greens, and less putts. Why does she only have 65%? You look at that swing and man, that's a phenomenal looking swing, but we're going to talk about some things I see. She does a great job of getting her hips involved, but her setup might be causing her some issues to give her a couple of both-sided misses. But her swing to me is a hybrid of a little Ben Hogan and a little bit of Rory McIlroy mixed into one to make her own motion. But let's get started and talk about her setup. So let's go to the very beginning of this video, and I've pre-drawn some lines so you don't have to get so bored watching me draw the lines. But we're going to look at her centerness, and you can see that blue line is a little bit behind where that X is in her spine angle and her lower plane line. Now what this might do is it might cause her to be a little bit toe heavy. And you can see right now, if we zoom in, let's see if I can zoom in. Can I do this? No, I can't use the scroll wheel. I wish I could use that mouse wheel. But if you can see here, we're going to draw like where her center of her hips are. We can see that's about where the center of her hip joint is. Now, what you'll notice is as she transfers her energy, and this happens to everybody that plays golf, I don't care what ability you have, that hip joint will find the center. And you'll see this is in transition where your knees are basically parallel to your foot line, and you'll see, look at where the center of the feet, and they're supporting now that center of the hips. So this is, even the best in the world can suffer for some center changes, but to reach her level, she has been able to compensate that. So let's take a look at her compensatory motions and figure out what is going on, and let's zoom back out to normal. So the great thing that happens right away is we see those arms and hands go right down in that lower plane line. We can see a slight raise of that left shoulder, but she will do a good job of righting that because she gets to that top position pretty well. You can see those hands are right in front of the center of the chest, so now the shoulders have run perpendicular to that purple Barney line. So this is a very good wide position. She's staying against her back brace line, which is awesome. She gets to the top of her secondary plane line. You can see her hands go slightly higher and a little long, but that's okay because she has turned a lot to allow that to happen. She hasn't sacrificed any position, and the great thing is if you take a look at her butt of the club straight down to the ground, it is well behind the center of her swing circle, which is right here. So this will give her adequate enough time to drop it in the slot and not come over the top, so she can get very shallow at this point. And what we're going to do to see this is if we draw her triangle check, the patented triangle check, we can see where the arms would like to go from that position. Now, remember for you at home, anything that appears right of this line initially, that's trouble. You're going to be over the top. So you would like it to go a little bit down below that line first. So we can see that first move, it is staying on her left side, which is great because now she can drop that club in the slot much sooner. Now, if you want to figure out how much she drops it in the slot, we can take a couple of numbers here. We're going to look at the angle, and let's do this in Barney Purple. We're going to look at the angle from here to the golf ball, and we can see it's at 56 degrees. We're going to eyeball it, but we take a look at that first move down right when the club gets to her center point. We can see that she's now dropped it to 40. That was a bad idea to put it there. but it is 45 degrees. So she dropped it 11 degrees in a very short amount of time. So now she knows she's good. So if we look here, we're starting to lose a little bit of that posture. We're starting to stand up slightly. And why is that? Well, let's backtrack on this. What we talked about when we first opened this video. We can see the center of the arches are matching the center of her hips where they were not in her address position. So she is naturally finding her centeredness. Now, some good things happen with that is because she's turning so much, watch her hip turn and watch her shoulder turns. The hips just open wide up. She's able to drop that right elbow against her body, hold that conservation of angular momentum. And yes, that's a big word, and that allows her to deliver, but she comes at a cost because if you take a look at impact, her shoulder tilt does not tilt enough down. She actually stays pretty level with her shoulder tilt now. The reason being is because she's run out of room here. She can't really tilt as well, so she has to just turn and get out the way and keep her hands out in front of her. Now, that's good because you're definitely getting more turn. At impact, her shoulders are opening up to the target, and we usually see the top in the world have square shoulders. Some even have closed shoulders at impact. So her turning can also help her square the club face, but if you add a little bit of release, that ball is going to go viciously one way or the other depending on their overriding path and club face numbers. And past impact, we can definitely see the loss of posture up here, but let's take a look at the shoulder tilt because it's relative to where she is. She does increase her shoulder tilt, but because she stands up, it negates that shoulder tilt. And let's talk about what we're trying to figure out here. So let's delete all these lines and let's go and get green because Barney Purple is a little bit tough here. And I think that's Rancho Park, if I'm not mistaken. So let's take her shoulder tilt number at the top. Remember, this is eyeballing, but it's going to be close enough for government work. We're at 35 degrees. And as she gets down into impact, we're going to go one frame just past impact there. And we can kind of see that there. And we're looking at about 40 degrees. So she's only increased her tilt 5 degrees. However, relative to her spine, she's probably increased it 25 to 30 degrees. The only difference is her spine angle changed. So if we go to the top of her swing one more time and look at where her spine angle was, we're going to draw we're going to draw in red. So there's her spine angle here. So her shoulders are perpendicular at 35 degrees. And let's go down into impact and see where her spine angle is now. And we're going to draw this in Barney Purple. And what we're going to try and do, let's figure this out like good mathematicians that we are becoming here. We're going to look at this angle and we're going to try and get this as close as we can. Boom and boom. So there's 18 degrees difference. 18 plus 5 is 23 degrees. So she does tilt 23 degrees. However, it's negated by her standing up. So when you don't increase your shoulder tilt, you rely on too much turn. And when you rely on too much turn, you get a little bit of hand in there. That's where both sides miss can come pretty quickly. And you can see how her driving percentages isn't as tight as she needs it to be. And this all stemmed from where? The setup. So we got a face-on view, and remember, you can get your hands ahead of impact two ways. You can either turn or you can tilt. Ideally, with a driver, you want to tilt because that'll increase your launch angle, assuming you can stay back enough and you're gifted enough to do so. But if you can remember what we talked about with setup, look at that golf ball. That golf ball runs right through the hands and right through the center of the chest. So everything is primed, ready to strike up. Now, ideally, you need to try and tilt to get your hands ahead, but we're going to take a look at impact. Watch her impact position. As she strikes the ball, we can see her hands are pressing, and her hands are pressing ahead of the golf ball like you would like to do. So we got some angular momentum here, but take a look at the shoulder tilt. We don't see much shoulder tilt change. So ideally, at this point, you would like to have more tilt to swing slightly more up. So she is kind of cutting across it a little bit, but we can see why she gets her hands ahead. So what can you learn from this today? Everything will always go back to your setup. Like every video I try and do here, I'm going to teach you the cause and effect based on your setup, and this affects even the best in the world. I believe she can get to 70-75% driving accuracy if she changes her setup to allow the arches of her feet to support the hips at the beginning, so she doesn't have to do all this compensatory work. But that doesn't mean it's over. You have to just get used to that new setup. So I hope that does help you. If you do like this, hit that like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us grow. Don't forget about Sundays, Red Light Live, and then also Phyllis Meddy interview. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for joining once again. I'll see you soon. Fair and green.